Darrell, it is great to have you with us today. Thank you so much. There's an old phrase, if you want to get something done, go to a busy person. And, I know how busy you are, Darrell. We were together last week at our luncheon, and I know you're a busy guy. So I want to thank you, for being here with us today, because I'm really looking forward to this. I always learn when you're on the screen, or whether you're in person, I always learn. How many times do you think I've introduced you now, Darrell? It's got to be in the 20s, eh?
Yeah, a lot of times you're one of the most generous people in introducing others. So yeah, John, it's great to have this chat, and yeah, it's always fun to learn and to go through some new things.
Yeah, no, and it's always fun to be with you, and I always learn. I've heard you speak well over 20 times. It's got to be, got to be that. And I learn every time. And you've been gracious enough to be on our CEO roundtables, really teaching our CEOs about digital marketing and helping them do a better job. So I want to welcome you here. I also want to welcome everybody else who's here to listen to you and to learn from you in the next few minutes. And so maybe a good place to start is just to let everybody know that, you are the founder and you're the CEO of Candybox Marketing, which is a full line, a full service digital marketing company, and marketing made sweet. I mean, how nice is that? Pluck that right off your website, and the marketing made sweet. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions in a second, but I think it's important for people to know a little bit about you. So let me just tell people a little bit about you. You started the company in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started CEO Global Network. Now, I started at the age of 67.
Okay, I was
You
a little
probably
younger than
started
you.
at the age of 27.
I was 21.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put more years on you.
Nope.
Yeah,
No,
21.
it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's 21.
absolutely. So we both started our companies in 2008, and you'll remember, I mean, we both know we started in the recession, hey, the big recession. We were there. And a time when really companies, CEOs needed what you were offering and what we were offering. And so in 2008 you started the journey, and here you are 14 years later, and you've just accomplished so much. But the number one thing when I think of you, I do think of your success with Candybox Marketing, but I think of your family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that bounces off the page for me with Darrell Keezer, is how important your family is to you, and unless I've missed something, you've got 4 kids, and you've told some tremendous stories about them. I remember the one with your daughter in the lemonade stand, right, out front of your house. And so, so I remember your family, and how important that is to you, and how important balance in your life is to you. But beyond that, you've built a highly successful company. You're an author and a highly sought after speaker. And I think one of the first times we met was at an event in Toronto where you had won an award. I think it was the Profit 500 award, and we met there, and then met several times after. But in between times, you wrote this book, right? Pick up your freaking phone, right? And the subtitle in there is New Rules for Entrepreneurs. So, if there's still copies around, Darrell, maybe some folks would like to get a copy from you, but some good lessons learned there. The other thing is, you've opened a new office. You're in Halifax, you're in Toronto now. And, and I first met you through Jim Greenwood. I've mentioned that many times, every time I introduce you. And Jim is one of our group leaders. I've known Jim for over 20 years, and his brother teaches at Sheridan. Jim was looking for someone who could come in and talk to his CEOs about digital marketing, and his brother recommended you. And that was the beginning of a really meaningful relationship. And I introduce you as the youngest member of the Sheridan Marketing Hall of Fame. are you still the youngest? I just,
I'm not even sure. I haven't.
anybody, anybody else preempt you on that? Darrell?
I don't think they're gonna have to. I think I was in there when I was like 28 or 29, so they'll have to try hard for that one. But yeah, and I was just getting started. I kind of felt awkward going into Hall of Fame when I'm just like we're just
Yeah,
getting
what were you then? Were you 25 or 6 for crying out loud?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thank you, John. It's we just feel like we're still getting started right now and learning lots and getting going. So it's been a fun ride and looking forward to the next phase of growth.
Well, you're a great guy to lead that phase of growth. And the last thing I just want to mention is just the number of awards. I'm not sure there's an entrepreneur that has won a company that has won more awards than you. I mean, you have just re-won the coveted Canadian Business Excellence Award, and the Globe and Mail, the Profit, and so on. You've won, I think, every award, and your company has for your achievements and really your rapid growth. And that might be something you could talk with us about today, is how you have managed that rapid growth, because it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. But let's get started. Let's get started with a question. And I know you're an avid book reader, and you can see. I mean, I got your book back here, and I've got many others. And over the last 6 months or whatever, what's a good book, a good business book that you have read that you might want to recommend to people on the call today?
Yeah, I actually read one just 2 months ago that I'd highly recommend, which is called The First 90 Days.
Oh, yeah.
And the first 90 days talks about the importance of somebody either entering a new company or a new role, and what they should really focus on and prioritize in the first 3 months of working there. And just in this time of change, of people resigning, people getting promoted, new companies, new positions, it is absolutely critical that we think about the first 90 days of anyone in their position and their onboarding, because that can either make you or break you. As an example, the book talks about a lot of leaders like to make their stamp on something, right? So they get a new position or they're working in a new company and they want to make their stamp. So that means that they're making changes. And sometimes without waiting enough time, they can make changes too quickly. And I like to use the analogy of my team of bringing a jackhammer and going on the foundation of a 60-story building in your first few days. People don't look at that favorably, and so it's really important. Not just your long-term success, but when you first start something, what does your first 90 days look like, and are they going to be successful? Because that's really going to dictate your next 3 to 5 years potentially. We recently brought on a new chief operating officer at Candybox, which prompted this. But when we went through it as a leadership team, we realized that this is something that we actually need, not just across our leaders, but across every person at our agency, to make sure that their first 3 months of onboarding, they're focused on the right things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great tip. Is the book called The First 90 Days?
Yep, that's what it's called. So it's pretty easy to remember. There's audio copies as well too. And I'll be listening to it a few times just to make sure we've got a path for everybody within our company. And that's also, even if you're getting promoted, as you're getting promoted, you don't want to fall into old habits. You don't want to get involved in things that you shouldn't anymore. And so, yeah, The First 90 Days is the book.
Well, that's great. I remember a CEO asking me, what's the most important thing? And they had just taken on a new role, and what's the most important thing in my first 30 days, and I said, listening.
Yes.
Listening.
Yes.
Like ask a lot of questions, be curious and listen. Right. And as to your point about don't take that jackhammer to the foundation. That's not a good idea. You want to kind of learn first, right? Listen and learn.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So we're gonna thank you for that. We're gonna learn. We're gonna talk a little bit about digital marketing today, but we're also going to talk about leadership. I really want to tap into your wisdom on leadership, Darrell. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when you think back to all the leaders you've known, maybe some of the people that you've worked with closely, who, and not looking for names here, really, just looking for this person was, kind of number one for me for this reason, right? Does anybody in particular come to mind, Darrell?
You know what? I would be okay to give names because I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
Okay,
But
yeah, no, I'm sure they
I,
would.
I
Absolutely.
remember in my first, I would call it like career job.
Yeah.
I worked for a gentleman, or my direct report was a gentleman named Roland Meckler, and he was the COO, and I believe he had a background of political science in writing. And one of the things that he taught me was that there's always a better way to say something. And in both verbal and in written communication, leaders, you actually spend most of your time communicating. So you're either in meetings talking, or you're out of meetings, potentially, writing an email or speaking with a customer. And sometimes, it's good news and sometimes it's not. And so you've got to be really good at crafting the right message, empathizing with your customer or with your employee first, and getting on the same team. And so many times when I worked with him, he was generous enough that I dealt with a lot of different key accounts. I would actually send some of my more challenging emails to him first, and he would spend the time editing them, and then giving them back to me so that I could see what changes he was making, understand why, and improve that skill, that muscle of communication. And yeah, I would say that out of all the different skills that I've learned over the years, being an excellent communicator is something that I personally got from this gentleman, Roland Meckler, and it's something
Great.
that I use every day. It's just critical.
Oh, it's so critical, isn't it, these days? With emails and so on, it's absolutely critical. And in your business, it's super critical for sure. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for that. I hope he hears about that. Well, you've probably told him. You've probably told him at some point.
He
Eh?
knows now, John.
He knows now. He
Yeah.
knows now. Yeah. So I just want to ask you this. You're part of a CEO peer group. You work with all kinds of CEOs. You're tuned in. Uh, what do you feel is sort of the number one, or the top two things that are really keeping CEOs up at night right now?
Hmm.
Anything,
I
anything come to mind?
Yeah. I mean, I think over the last few years, we've been to hell and back. The circumstances have been, for a lot of us, outrageous, very different. And so I actually feel like a lot of leaders aren't as concerned about our circumstances as much anymore because we've gone through a lot. But the thing that I think a lot of CEOs are concerned about is will people leave me? Having been going through the great resignation, as they call it, or I like the term better, the great reflection, because it's not like people are just leaving the workforce. People are staying in the workforce. They're just reflecting on their lives and changing jobs, right? So for some, it's resignations. For others, they're hiring those people. And a lot of CEOs are wondering, are people going to move on? Are my key people going to move on? Do I have enough relational equity to get through this next quarter of the game? And during the pandemic, it was interesting seeing a lot of leaders, and we hate keep continuing to talk about it, but I think that a lot of leaders made the mistake of cutting their relational equity with their people. Not all, but some. And so they just, they were letting people off in droves, and not that couldn't be fully avoided, but there were some things that leaders could have done. And they broke a lot of relational equity. And now a different chapter of the game where we need people more than we ever have before, right? Unemployment is at its lowest rate. The
Right.
rate for talent is very hard. And leaders are wondering, when I go into this next game, when I go into this quarter, is my team going to be with me? And I think we feel like as leaders, we can face a lot of obstacles and inflation or stagflation or the recession, whatever's going on. But will I have my people? And I always remind people that a company is people. It's not ideas. It's not just technology. It's people. And so I think that's what people are generally concerned about, and wondering how much relational equity do they have with their key people.
Well, absolutely, because the war for talent is intense, right? And so your top people are going to be they're going to be offered opportunities, aren't they? And so that relationship, that glue that you have, the trust, the culture of the company. I mean, I know that's something that you've worked on, is the culture at your firm at Candybox Marketing.
Yeah.
And may we touch on that a little bit, Darrell? How have you been able to develop the culture you have at Candybox?
Yeah, and develop is the right word, because we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Recently we won an award. The one we're actually most proud about. I mean, we won a lot of growth awards, but the one that we are most proud about is we won top 10 places to work in Canada.
Yeah, how good is that?
And that's, because anybody can turn a profit, anybody can grow, and you can step on the necks of a lot of people on the way there.
Yeah.
But top 10 places to work requires dedication to people. And so how have we gotten there is really a combination of a team effort of looking at different areas that we're not good at. And so we are regularly, we actually use software to regularly pull our people and find out, guys, where are we failing? Where are we falling down? What are we not paying attention to? And on a monthly basis for years, we look through the reports. And our agenda is, let's take a look at what we're not doing well, and let's start fixing it. And so a lot of corporations would love the silver bullet, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe we need to do half day Fridays. They think that's their silver bullet, or Taco Tuesdays, or maybe, we just need a better benefits providers. And they're just looking through all these silver bullets and saying, well, will this solve our culture? And truly it won't. You've got to constantly diagnose what is going wrong in your culture. What are people dealing with? What are people struggling with? And knowing that doesn't change, year to year. That changes day to day. And you've got to keep your finger on the pulse and fix stuff really quickly. And so people say, what is the thing that you should do to improve culture? To be honest, it's listen and find out where you're falling down, because there's a new story every single day.
Well, that's absolutely, that's a great lesson. It's a great takeaway for me, and I would imagine for many others on this call. And you did go on a roundtable where a CEO roundtable that we had, where you talked about some of those diagnostic tools, right, that you're using and that you were recommending others use to really tap into, to the mood, and to the feelings of your employees. And congratulations on that award. Yes, that's a very significant award to get. That would mean a lot to you and to the people.
And sometimes it's like, sorry, kind of to add on to that, the awkward thing is sometimes we've got to ask the questions that we don't want the answers to.
We don't want the answer to, right? I agree. Yeah.
And one of the things that I shared, and it's a joke now at my company, is one of the things that our software the software asked people was, does your workplace promote healthy eating? And that's not a question that I would feel like asking people. I'm like thinking, guys, it's your mouth, eat your own food.
If you want.
at Candybox, we had unlimited free candy, and people complained about it. And so we had to start thinking of new ways of promoting healthy eating. And that's not the question I wanted to ask, but it was important for people to trim some weight and have less cavities.
Absolutely. Well, that's there's some great lessons there. Thanks for that, Darrell. Jim Greenwood many years ago brought you in to speak to CEOs to learn more about digital marketing. So here we are, probably that's got to be 7 years ago or so, Darrell. And so here we are. And my question to you is, a lot's happened in digital marketing, and since we first met. And so what are the key things, if you were, talking to a group of CEOs right now, like you did back then with Jim's group, if you were talking to them, what would be 2-3 key messages to those CEOs, those entrepreneurs, that they should know about digital marketing?
Okay, so I'll start this off with 2 challenges and 1 opportunity. How about that? So there's some things that digital marketing is going through right now that I think we need to talk about. And the first one is that in my, Candybox Marketing, we're 14 years old. Digital marketing has never changed as much as it has this year. And I say that unapologetically, it has changed so much. And so what I'm going to say is digital marketing right now is volatile. The rise of new privacy laws, new privacy practices from cell phone makers, Apple, Android, has led to many major networks not having access to the same data that we did years ago. And so for a lot of us, it was very easy for digital marketing. It's like, okay, branding, then website, then we're going to do, some Facebook advertising, some Instagram stuff, some Google search, some videos, and we call it a day, and it's very successful. Those networks, so Facebook and Google, is now paring down on the amount of data that they collect, the amount of data that they give advertisers, which makes it more challenging to reach your end customer, and that makes it actually more expensive. So if you have a digital marketing plan right now and it's based anywhere around social media advertising or search advertising, we really got to take a look at the cost there, because for some, I've seen some companies that were spending $50,000 to $100,000 per month on these networks, and the well dried up overnight because of privacy laws. So that's one thing. It's volatile right now. The second challenge, and sorry to keep giving some challenges, but this is
that's fine. That's what we're here for.
We got to face it. The second thing is the downfalls that companies are finding with outsourcing their work, especially their digital marketing. So years ago, agencies would go through shortcuts and outsource their work overseas, offshoring, nearshoring. But what's happening right now with that model is that there's actually increased competition of digital marketing online. And we need to be a lot more, what would I say? We need to be a lot more brand focused, a lot more strategic in our messaging. And sometimes those outsourced partners don't have the creative resources to sell, Canadian products to Canadians in a Canadian marketplace. Right. And so we're finding out that we need to kind of bring this stuff in to get better results. The other thing on that is that when you're outsourcing, now outsourced providers have access to business critical information and customer details. And with privacy, this is a bit of an issue. So if you're outsourcing to an agency that puts it overseas, all of a sudden somebody overseas has access to all of your customers' data, their purchase habits and stuff. And data leaks are happening in the news every single day. And typically it's because it's one or two steps removed from the company that was actually operating those campaigns. And so it's just a bit of a challenge right now that companies need to figure out who's actually touching my work, who's coming in to our office and touching our customer data. So you asked for a couple of things. Those are two challenges, but yeah, I want to give an opportunity here.
Okay, the opportunities are good.
The biggest opportunity right now is that marketing at its fundamentals and digital marketing is still about good ideas. All right. And so the ability of digital marketing platforms, the ability of sharing that message out very quickly on new emerging networks, on TikTok, on Reddit. Now, it used to happen in days and weeks. Now it's happening in minutes and hours. And so if you have good ideas, if you execute those good ideas really, really well, that can be record-breaking sales for you. And we're seeing a number of our customers get traction on new networks faster than they did on previous networks when we are going through a digital evolution. So it's kind of like things have sped up in a bad way on the volatility side, but then there's the good speed up of, okay, we just released a TikTok and we got 4 million views, and we're shaking our head saying, how did that happen, right? But it's about good ideas. And so if you're in it for the customer, if you're in it with with an idea that you believe that can change your sales in the next year, the chances are you can be heard in this marketplace.
Well, that's interesting. So you can make an impact real fast, a big impact real fast with the right content, with the right ideas, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And, well, that's exciting, isn't it, to be able to do that?
100%. And we've always said at our agency that strategies eat tactics for breakfast. And so, you can have one really good idea that makes your entire quarter. Yeah. But it's about generating those ideas, bringing the ideas close, working either closely with your internal marketing team or your agency, and not just saying, well, we're just going to ship it off and we're going to pay $20,000 a month. And hopefully we're going to get some sales out of it. Those days were great days, but they're done. And so we've got to really focus on really good ideas.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks for that. Let's talk about leadership again, Darrell. And some qualities of leadership are timeless, right? Like, the 219 in 219 before COVID hit, these things were really important for leaders, right? For CEOs. And
Mhm.
and there's some new skills, some new abilities that are emerging as we come out of, let's hope we're coming out of the pandemic. And so kind of a combination question, a couple of qualities that you feel are really important for CEOs in a timeless sense. And then are there a couple that you feel are really relevant today and maybe more relevant than ever before, for a post-pandemic leader?
All right.
What are
Those are
your
two,
thoughts on that, Daryl?
those are two really big questions.
They are big questions. We're looking for
Yeah.
a big answer on this too, Daryl.
Yeah. So I actually listened to your talk the other day with Ron Baugh. And
Yes.
I actually want to expand on one of his points, because his point from Weber's, and great hamburgers, by the way, my favorite hamburgers. And if you haven't listened to that talk and you're watching this one, go watch Ron's, because it's probably going to be better than my answer. But I would actually agree that the number one trait that is the timeless trait, and that needs to be talked about over and over again, is humility. And when you say humility, when people say humility, sometimes it doesn't land on a fertile soil. Like, people think, well, humility means like, okay, well, I'm not that smart, or I don't know everything. And there's a little bit of truth to that. But I once heard it said that humility is not thinking less about yourself. It's just about thinking more of others.
That's a good way to put it.
And that type of humility, because there's a lot of leaders that are very talented and they're very smart individuals, and you say, well, be more humble, and they think, well, if I know more than people in the room, like a couple people in the room, where does that leave me? And I believe that humility, just thinking more about what others have, allows you to listen more to the experts around you and heavily weigh their opinions. Even if their opinions are wrong, you've got to heavily weigh it. And I see, even myself, in meetings, realizing, hold on a second, I've been talking for half of this meeting.
Yeah.
And that means that's sending a message to everybody else that I know half of the content of what should be shared. And I think I'm personally trying to change that and make adjustments. But I think that when we think more of others, we're going to spend more time listening. And when we spend more time listening, we're going to be great learners, which we talked about at the beginning. If you're arrogant, you just feel like you're going to do all the talking, and you're going to forge your own path. So I would, unfortunately, I've got the same answer that Ron gave. But
well, you're both right. In terms of it, you both feel that's an important, really important quality for any leader, for anybody, period, right?
Yeah. And to kind of go hand in hand with that, like, just a learning leader, right? I mean, it goes without saying, but if you're not learning, you're going to be irrelevant within a few years, and you're not going to keep up with the times. You're not going to listen to your customers. You're not going to listen to your team, and you are slowly phasing yourself out of business leadership if you're not learning. And those things have to go hand in hand, because if you're arrogant, you don't learn, right? You're there just to talk in the meeting. Your leg's only job is to bring your brain from one meeting to the other, and that's a scary place to be.
That is a scary place to be. Let me just say this about humility. And I believe you were on the call when we had Marilyn Gist speak.
Mm-hmm.
And Marilyn, I was looking for the book behind me, and it is behind me somewhere. And she wrote a terrific book that I recommend to everybody on the call. And it's The Extraordinary Power of Humility, of Leadership Humility. And it's just a terrific book, and it really underscores exactly what you're talking about and what Ron talked about, how important it is. And do you feel that, I mean, it's a timeless quality, but do you feel it's more important today than ever, Darrell?
I do, because we, in an environment where we become a little bit more disconnected, sometimes we just enter a Zoom meeting and we just go for it, and that's a mistake, right? We lay out the agenda. We tell people what we think that they need to hear and what they need to do, and we're not asking the right questions, and we're not even we're not even comfortable with those awkward pauses of saying, I'm not sure what to do here. Those aren't common in the the remote Zoom culture, and I think we need to get better at it. I think we need to go into meetings and ask more open-ended questions and allow for those open pauses and for people to consider stuff and to take breaks during their meetings. And it's what we used to do, but just in a very different format. So yeah, we've got to learn, and we got to hear from our people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, speaking of learning, Darrell, I've learned a lot through the last 15, 20 minutes on this call. We need to wrap up. I know you've got a lot going on today, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us and sharing your thoughts on this. I mean, you're so articulate in the way that you share your knowledge, and I really want to thank you for that. I also want to thank everybody who was on the call with us today. I'm sure you've really enjoyed Darrell just like I have, and have written down a number of takeaways from his comments. So with that, thanks again, Darrell. We're going to wrap up now, and let you get back to Candybox Marketing.
Thanks so much,
Take
John.
care, Darrell. Thank you so much.